Hi, welcoming everyone on behalf of the City Bar Association. I am Roger Juan Maldonado, President of the City Bar. I want to thank you for coming for this very, very special occasion, the presentation of the Association Medal to the Honorable Sonia Sotomayor. The Association Medal is considered to be, by many, the most prestigious honor that the City Bar Association confers. It has been awarded to only 25 persons over the last 67 years. The awardees are chosen by our executive committee, acting upon the nomination of our honors committee. And I'd like to thank the members of the honors committee and its chair, the Honorable Kiyo Matsumoto. I leave to Judge Matsumoto and the other speakers the privilege of telling you much more about the Honorable Sonia Sotomayor and her many accomplishments. I must say, however, how deeply important this is to me on a personal basis, to be able to have this award take place and be conferred to my fellow Boricua. Es un honor y un placer darle la bienvenida al Colegio de Abogados de la Ciudad de Nueva York. I'm welcoming her to the City Bar. I also want to emphasize just how important this event and events like it are to our association. It means so much to us to be able to give honors such as this to persons who are emblematic of our understanding and appreciation for the rule of law in this country. They serve as role models, not just for all of us here assembled tonight, but for anyone who truly cares about a just society. And in this regard, I must note that the concept of role modeling and mentorship is something that is deeply, deeply part of who Justice Sotomayor is. I witnessed at an event a year ago and again tonight how she goes up to every single young person in the room, introduces herself, asks, how are you doing, what do you do, and what are your plans for the future? So in keeping with that theme, we want to hear first tonight from someone who is soon to be a lawyer. And when I first read this, I said, soon to be a lawyer, but from White and Case. And as Kristen Callan explained to me, that she is not yet admitted because it got postponed because she's on trial. And she is going to tell us about how she has appreciated being mentored by Sonia Sotomayor. Kristen?
Thank you. Good evening. I am so humbled, honored, and grateful to be here tonight with all of you for this amazing event to honor the incredible and incomparable Justice Sonia Sotomayor. I was asked if I could speak briefly on how the justice has inspired me in my life or in my fledgling legal career thus far. And there were, of course, many a written opinion and a multitude of law school memories that came to mind. But the more I mulled it over, I kept coming back to this one moment in particular that developed into a theme of sorts. Growing up, my mother, who's right there, would tell me that I could be anything in the world that I wanted to be. I could be an astronaut or a dog walker, so long as I was the best at it. And I would ask, well, how does one become the best? And she would say, you just have to find your passion. As we all know, that is much easier said than done. And over the years, I chiseled away at this task, every new experience, an obstacle, adding a little insight, a little maturity, a little wisdom to the goal. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter how great we are on paper, how many trophies we win, or straight-A report cards we bring home, if at the end of the day we aren't comfortable with who we are right now, in the present. And to get there, we have to be confident in the days ahead and proud of the ones behind us. As someone whom I've admired my entire young adult life, and my first ever opportunity to interact with the justice, I posed to her a personal rather than purely academic question. At that time, we were in the wake of the Orlando nightclub shooting, and as a country, clearly struggling with a bit of a political and cultural identity crisis. I asked the justice if, given her upbringing and background, she ever struggled with any ideological or social divides, not necessarily with her colleagues on the court, but rather with those closest to her, with her family members or friends who may not agree with many of the opinions she holds or dissents that she writes. And if that were the case, how does she approach those situations? With her infamous ability to deliver an impressive answer, the justice, after looking at me for a brief moment and perhaps deciding whether to respond to this rather strange question at all, gave me a personal anecdote of her own. And she told me that in times of disagreement or discord, in order to move forward or make change, we often need to take it upon ourselves to be the bridge between two worlds. Although for the justice it was an off-the-cuff answer to a shy 1L's impromptu inquiry, I found the statement to be simultaneously both dignified and delicate. She not only gave me a new turn of phrase by which to learn and live, but helped me realize that we must always be true to ourselves in the best of times and worst of times, in our successes and failures, in our professional careers, and our personal lives. It was a moment I will never forget and an opportunity for which I will be forever grateful to the Sonia and Selena Sotomayor Judicial Internship Program. Now, standing here before you today, I definitely do not know if I am the best, but I am confident that I have indeed found a career that I am passionate about and a role model that has taught and inspired me that it's okay to stray from the pack a little bit. We don't always have to fit a mold. It's okay to be your authentic self, and so that's what I plan to do. 1 week from today, I will be sworn into the bar as an official practicing attorney in the state of New York. And I promise to all of you that similar to the way the justice so gracefully does day in and day out, I will welcome the opinions of those who may be different from mine, embrace the people that come from different backgrounds and cultures and walks of life, and at all times I will strive to remain grounded, engaged, and be that bridge that is so often needed between two worlds. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Buenas tardes. I'm Melissa Colon Bachelet, a litigation partner at Sidley Austin and chair of the New York City Bar Association's Women in the Legal Profession Committee. It is an honor to be with you this evening and a tremendous privilege to join so many distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends as we celebrate Justice Sotomayor on her exceptional contributions to the legal profession and to unveil the portrait that will adorn the walls of this great institution. It's been said, you can't be what you can't see. All of us, consciously or not, rely on examples, leaders, stories, or in the most basic form, images. We rely on them to tell us who we are, our history, but most importantly, our potential. That is what members of the Women in the Legal Profession Committee had in our hearts when we initiated the Women on the Walls project. It's an initiative that was launched in order to acknowledge and honor leading female attorneys and judges who are pioneers for women in the law by commissioning their portraits. Justice Sotomayor's portrait is the Women on the Wall initiative's inaugural portrait that will hang here in the meeting hall, and we cannot think of a more deserving subject for this series. In thinking about how meaningful this event is, I was reminded of Parker Curry. Many of you may remember the beautiful girl whose adoration of Michelle Obama's portrait at the National Portrait Gallery went viral last year. The former First Lady, she understood how important it was for people, especially our youth, to see the representation of an African-American woman on a wall at the Smithsonian Institution. On reflecting on that night, she said, "Young people, particularly girls and girls of color, in future years, they will come to this place and see someone who looks like them hanging on the walls of this incredible institution." In short, representation matters. I'd like to share a similar moment in my own life, my own Parker Curry story. And for context, I offer you a bit of my background. I grew up in the Bronx. I'm also a Boricua. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I didn't know any lawyers growing up. But 15 years ago, I matriculated at Cornell Law School. As a first-year law student, I diligently read all of the decisions in my casebook. I was excited to learn and so humbled to be able to join this very noble profession. Not surprisingly, the vast majority of the opinions in those casebooks were written by white male judges. But one day, I turned the page in my casebook and came across a Second Circuit decision authored by then Circuit Judge Sonia Sotomayor. I remember leaning in when I saw the name and said, "Sonia Sotomayor, who is this woman?" And so I went to look her up. Thank you, Google. Now, Justice Sotomayor, the nerdy student in me really would like to tell you that I remember the name of the case and the key holding of that decision, but I do not.
You're normal.
But what I do remember very vividly is the feeling I felt when I looked her up and saw that she too was from the Bronx, that she too was Puerto Rican, and the first person in her family to go to college and then law school. I then learned she became the youngest judge in the Southern District, the first Latina federal judge in New York State, and the first Puerto Rican woman to serve as a judge in a U.S. federal court before she became a judge on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. In that moment, I remember thinking, Melissa, not only can you survive law school, you can thrive. Seeing her name in that casebook was that powerful. And so the importance of representation is not lost on me this evening. Having our names in those casebooks, having our images on those walls, and having a seat at the table in the courtroom and the boardroom, that matters. Justice Sotomayor, te quiero decir muchísimas gracias. I want to say thank you very much. You have inspired me and so many others. I look forward to the moment when I can glance up at the wall when I come here for one of my meetings and see your portrait. The Women on the Walls initiative sought to honor pioneers in the legal profession that did not pull up the ladder behind them when they reached greatness. Their sacrifices, their contributions, they should be honored, and that is what tonight is about. I want to thank the many members of the Women in the Legal Profession Committee who supported this initiative, and in particular Noreen Weiss, who served as chair of the subcommittee for several years. This is a very exciting moment for me, and I'm sure for all of us here. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Jamie Lee McMahon, the artist who painted the beautiful rendering of Justice, to come up and unveil Justice Sotomayor's portrait.
It looks like me.
It does look like you. It really does. I love the cheeks. I mean, it's just, where did he go? Is he already in his seat? It's beautiful. Thank you, sir. You've captured the spirit. You know, because we're all very protective. And if it didn't look good, it was not going to go well tonight. Just saying. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to speak at this ceremony and join the bar and our New York legal community in recognizing the achievements of United States Supreme Court Associate Justice Sonia Sotomayor. The bar's presentation of the Association Medal and its commission of this beautiful portrait reflect the high esteem in which the bar holds Justice Sotomayor for her intellect, her commitment to the rule of law, to justice, fairness, and equality, as well as her ability to inspire us to be better than we think we can be, to achieve more than we believe we can, and to treat every individual with dignity. Apart from recognizing her professional achievements based on her personal success, the bar rightly honors Justice Sotomayor because she is a role model who embodies the values of the legal profession. She lives responsibly, ethically, committed to the greater good of our society. She cares about the development of the law and how it impacts people, real people. And while Justice Sotomayor is at ease in the rarefied world of the United States Supreme Court, she is also grounded, fully aware of her background and her roots, her Puerto Rican ancestry, her gender, her ethnicity, and of course, her beloved Yankees. Yankees get a point. She's grounded, aware of the daily challenges faced by our diverse communities and of people less fortunate than herself. Her voice resonates across communities. It is a unique, almost preternatural connection to people. Even in New York, the hottest ticket is not to a Broadway show. It is to a moderated conversation, between Justice Sotomayor and a judge, lawyer, or law professor here at the bar. She walks around the room, as Roger's already mentioned, to take pictures and shake hands and give hugs, lots of hugs. And have you seen those lines at her book signing events? She is known for staying until she signs a book for everyone who waited to see her. Her best-selling memoir is evocative and full of real stories. No wonder My Beloved World and her children's books are translated into Spanish and several other languages, because language is no barrier for this Supreme Court justice. Yet despite the demands on her time, she continues to give generously to her family, friends, former associates, and clerks. She advises, tutors, and guides, and she is the ideal mentor, candid, dogged, demanding, compassionate, understanding, very patient, insightful, available, and fun. She is the last person to tell you something is impossible and the first to tell you to follow your dreams. Like her other clerks, I have benefited from her advice throughout the years, and I know several of the clerks are here, and I'm happy to see so many of them. She was encouraging when I was applying to become a law professor. If you can believe it, she read and gave me feedback on the Law Journal article that I submitted during my job search, and was as excited for me as I was for myself when I accepted my first teaching position. As my career progressed, she still read those articles. Thank you very much. One of the three who read them, you know, my mother, me, and her. She was kind. Whenever I told her I was thinking of taking on a new project, she asked why, and how would it help me develop my skills and my stature in the academy. When I was thinking of applying for a judicial position, she took on that serious tone that I knew all too well and that every clerk here knows also. And she asked, what are you doing to ensure the Judicial Nominating Commission knows that you have the ability and temperament to sit on New York's highest court? And once I was appointed, she gave me the best piece of advice I have received. Pace yourself, because it will take some time to feel comfortable as a judge, but do not doubt your abilities. She was, as always, spot on. When there have been deaths in the family, Justice Sotomayor has been there to comfort, and we are forever grateful. And I am not alone in this great, generous way that she is with people who need her in the most difficult of moments. I have regularly looked back to the time I clerked for lessons on how to be an effective and fair judge. I have tried to emulate her approach. Be meticulous in your research. Consider the applicability of the law to the reality of people's lives. Be fair towards the parties and treat every person, I mean every person, with respect. I am following her example as best I can. But those close to her are not the only ones fortunate enough to be the focus of her attention and concern. Throughout her entire life, Justice Sotomayor has applied her abilities and talent to helping others. Where she has been the first, she has ensured she would not be the last. In Spanish, we say she has always been presente. She has argued for diversity in our educational institutions and spends time with young people, inspiring them with her story and her tough love that you have to work hard for what you want. She speaks her truth, and that truth is one the kids truly understand. She has been supportive of junior lawyers and encouraged them to take risks that would benefit their career development, while reminding them of their professional obligation to the common good. I cannot give exact numbers, But after her appointment to the Supreme Court, the number of Latino lawyers who sought admission to the court increased dramatically. It now seemed that it really was a place for Latinos. And of course, everyone wanted to see the justice. She has done what every member of this profession should do. She has mentored the next generation of lawyers and spoken of the importance of service to our communities. And that is another reason why she has earned her place on the wall of this association's house. It is one thing to be a towering figure in the legal profession, to have a reputation as a brilliant lawyer and then a brilliant jurist, to be known as a master strategist and a gifted pull-no-punches writer. But it is a wholly different matter to be all that, and as they say, all that, and also to be respected and loved, to be considered an extraordinary individual because of your professional skill and because of your decency, generosity, and compassion. Authenticity is a rare quality, much too rare these days, I must say. But Justice Sotomayor has it in abundance. I have walked into this building many times. I have looked at the portraits on the walls many times. There was always something missing, or better said, someone missing. There was no portrait of a woman whose life experiences were familiar, who spoke Spanish, or whose words spoke of the challenges and difficulties I had observed my whole life. I am so very, very pleased that the City Bar has filled that void. I am certain that I will not be the last person to look up to Justice Sotomayor's portrait and smile. Indeed, I am certain many generations will be inspired when they look at this portrait and learn of the Justice's achievements and willingness to always pay it forward. But I am just as certain that the bar's recognition of Justice Sotomayor and this portrait will always have special meaning for people of color, and most especially, if I can be a little territorial now, for Latino and Latina lawyers and judges. We can look up with a sense of pride, joy, and hope because a great and wondrous Latina has taken her rightful place in this house. Thank you to the bar, and thank you, Justice Sotomayor.
Good evening. On behalf of the Honors Committee and the New York City Bar Association, I'm delighted to present the New York City Bar Association Medal to the Honorable Sonia Sotomayor, Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. The unanimous and enthusiastic recommendation by the members of the Honors Committee for Justice Sotomayor to receive this award made her a most outstanding and deserving candidate, and she was unanimously approved by the Executive Committee of this association as well. The Association Medal was conceived in 1951 and is presented from time to time to a member of the New York Bar who has made exceptional contributions to the honor and standing of the bar in this community. Previous recipients have included Whitney North Seymour, the Honorable John J. McCloy, Arthur Lyman, John Furyk, Robert Morgenthau, the Honorable Judith Kaye, and Associate United States Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose portrait hangs in this hall. Although one cannot overstate the many reasons that Justice Sotomayor is most deserving recipient of the Association Medal, I will be brief here because of all of the tributes by the previous speakers tonight. We're all doubtlessly aware of the People's Princess in the United Kingdom. Well, here in New York and in the United States, we have a People's Justice. Throughout her legal career, Justice Sotomayor is truly someone who exemplifies, someone who cares deeply about the law and those who are affected by it. She was first, as we know, a litigator here in New York City, and then appointed to the District Court of the Southern District of New York. And throughout her career, as she ascended to the Second Circuit and the United States Supreme Court, she has generously and timelessly devoted her spare time to the countless events, students, lawyers, and those who come to meet her and to hear what she has to say. She has mentored people individually and inspired countless others. As a participant in the Sonia and Selena Sotomayor Summer Internship Program, I've had the privilege of observing Justice Sotomayor as she speaks collectively and individually, one-on-one with many of the students, both high school and law students, and inspires them. She wants to know about their backgrounds, their communities, their experiences in school, their families, and she shares so generously of her own experience, inspiring these young students to achieve beyond their wildest aspirations. In addition to her willingness to listen and relate to so many of those in the legal community and those who aspire to become part of it, Justice Sotomayor's well-crafted and thoughtful decisions have inspired lawyers and judges to achieve and to be their best, both professionally and personally. The Association Medal will be presented this evening and is the work of American sculptor C.L. Schmitz. The obverse of the medal depicts an adaptation of the seal of the New York City Bar Association, which features a full-length figure of Athena, goddess of wisdom, strength, courage, inspiration, law, and justice. So in addition to the people's justice, perhaps Justice Sotomayor is the people's goddess. And I digress. On either side of Athena on the medal is a legend from the fourth book of Aristotle's Politics, which reads, "Where the laws are not enforced, there can be no free state, for it is essential that the law be supreme." And no one more than Justice Sotomayor exemplifies the rule of law and the need for all of us as lawyers and judges to be active in ensuring that the rule of law is alive and well in our country. Justice Sotomayor, it is my great honor to present to you the Association Medal this evening. Thank you for accepting this medal. It's very well deserved, and we recognize your exceptional contributions to the honor and the standing of the legal community here in New York and beyond. And if I can figure out how to open it. Maybe one of our marshals can bust it open. I am afraid it might be.
How many lawyers does it take?
Now, Justice Sotomayor.
Wow. That is quite spectacular. It's hard to speak after all those wonderful words. It's really tough. Hello, everyone. I am so deeply moved by the words of my dear friends today and by the love that emanates from this room. There's so many old and new friends here. It's just wonderful to see everyone. I am overwhelmed. I am often asked by kids if I ever dreamt as a child of being a Supreme Court justice. I always say no. You can't dream about what you don't know about. And as a child living in a housing project in the Bronx, I never met a lawyer or a judge. But as improbable as becoming a Supreme Court justice was to me as a child, and even most of my adult life, by the way, participating in a day like today would have been equally fanciful. When I started as a young lawyer, one of the first bar associations I became involved in was the City Bar. First, this magnificent building seemed like a portal of learning and erudition. For those of you who've never been in the building, it's spectacular, isn't it? It made and still makes me and every lawyer and person who walks through its hall feel special. It is a remarkable home for a young lawyer, fitting for this city of my heart, New York, with all of the magic of its immensity and diversity, a place unlike any other on earth. Second, I was so impressed that some of the finest lawyers in the city had been members of this bar, including men like Root and Tilden, and members of the Supreme Court like Chief Justice Charles Evan Hughes. These were legends in the legal profession. Third, the association was always doing interesting and groundbreaking work in its committees and issue statements, as it still does now. It was why early in my career, and I bet the association has forgotten this, I joined the Intellectual Property Lawyers Committee. I came to meetings. I learned much new and met some wonderfully talented lawyers at the same time. For young lawyers in this room tonight, joining a bar association is a critical support network in your life. It provides you with a place to reach out to more veteran colleagues to get help when you need it. More importantly, it provides you with a place to feel at home and current on new legal issues. Yet in my early days here, there were few portraits of women or people of color on the walls, not a dissimilar situation than that of my alma mater, Yale Law School, where no pictures of women or minorities then hung. But this association, faster than my alma mater, had diversity in its leadership and soon began hanging portraits of men and women who could more fully reflect the remarkable diversity of our city and our legal community. There is today a picture that includes Thurgood Marshall, a justice of the Supreme Court, with whom I sadly never had the privilege of serving. And today, my dear colleague and friend, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, her portrait hangs there next to Justice Marshall's. I am told my portrait will be in that empty space behind you. I am absolutely floored by that. Both Justice Marshall and Justice Ginsburg, civil rights icons, opened the doors for people like me to enter and thrive in this profession. They are my personal heroes, and it is beyond comprehension to be placed alongside them. I am immensely grateful to the association and its members for this extraordinary honor you have bestowed on me. I also want to say a word about the Association Medal, which I am also so deeply touched to receive. Here, too, I am humbled to be included not only among heroes like my colleague Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but also people like the great legal giant who hired me out of law school, Bob Morgenthau, and Archibald Murray, a dear friend for many years who supported everything I did and who was an icon in his own making in this association and in our legal profession. He was also a former chair of the Bar Association's Executive Committee. Phenomenal lawyers who, working in different ways, did so much over their careers to bring our city closer and closer to being a place where the law and justice truly go hand in hand, and where, as the oath I took when I became a federal judge says, we try to do equal right to the poor and to the rich. This is a lofty aspiration, to be seated with those great men and women, seems far beyond any dream anyone could ever have had. It is organizations like this one, all across the country, that help us preserve and continue that tradition, ensuring that we remain a place where the law governs equally over all, protecting our cherished freedoms, and promising justice to all people. I thank each of the speakers today. Directly or indirectly, each of you have been a part of my life orbit. Kristen, you're amazing. I wish I was. You are so far ahead of what I was when I first started out. Wow. One of the things I have been devoting my time to since I became a Supreme Court justice is promoting education and civic participation by young people. I am incredibly grateful to the founders, one of whom is here, Selena, founders of the Sonia and Selena Sotomayor internship program, for creating the opportunity for kids like you were, kids who were just like me when I was younger, to thrive and grow stronger in their lives and professions. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you. It is so comforting to know that what follows behind me is going to be better than I was. Melissa, you're quite awesome. Wow. Your work on the Women in the Legal Profession Committee is helping not just to diversify the profession and to promote the greater participation of people like us in this bar, but also in the profession and in the great nation as a whole. Thank you for your passion and your dedication. You too give me so much hope. Roger, you and I have known each other for decades. Throughout my career, you have been by my side, always quietly but persistently promoting my interests and assisting me. Never with fanfare, never seeking attention, but you've always been there. I have not told you enough how grateful I am for your support and your love. Thank you, sir. Kiyo, it is hard for you to appreciate how thrilled I was when you joined the Eastern District of New York. Your energy, drive, and spunk were such a welcome addition to that bench. I see some of my Eastern District colleagues out there.
We've got plenty of spunk over there.
I know. And you were a welcomed addition as a colleague to my life. I am so grateful for your work on this bar's committee and for your support in my receiving this most prestigious medal. I expect someday I may attend a ceremony like this for you too. Finally, Jenny, I hope I have told you enough how proud I am of you. People should know that I helped hire Jenny as an attorney for the then Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund in the 1980s. Now I'm aging her and me. I was the head of the board's litigation committee and interviewed Jenny. I followed her career thereafter, and when I became a district court judge, I reached out to her and asked her to apply to me as a clerk. I wanted to work with her directly. I had been so impressed. In life, we make a few inspired decisions for which we remain convinced that a being above has been watching over us and has made us a gift. Jenny has been that to me. Her work as a professor at the CUNY School of Law and as a judge of the New York State Court of Appeals has always been thoughtful, insightful, and scholarly. Jenny, my friend, I love you and beam with pride. I am also grateful to all the friends who have come to share this evening with me. Your lifelong support and assistance is being honored as well. I'm here because of you. Whatever I have accomplished is because of all of your help. Thank you again for sharing this wonderful evening with me. Finally, I need to thank the amazing artist of my portrait, Jamie Lee McMahon. Jamie did my portrait at Yale, and I did not think he could top that. But he has. It is impossible to believe, Jamie, that you could make me look even better. And I think we have established a really close bond. In this portrait, you have made my earrings and my big watch band more visible. Thank you. Be careful, Jamie. I think I may have gotten under your skin. I am very appreciative that this portrait captures, I believe, the essence of who I am. Thank you, sir. In fact, for the many attorneys who will see this portrait, I hope they will see in my face the joy, passion, and love that I have both for life and for the law. It is my hope always that young lawyers will remember that our profession is one of the most honorable in life's pursuits that there is, and that we as lawyers can, must, and do give good to the world. Thank you all for these unimaginable honors tonight and for celebrating them with me together this evening. Thank you. I haven't gotten enough hugs tonight, so I'm going to come around the audience, and people who want to stay and ask some questions of me, I'm going to walk around. Just don't jump up too much or my marshals get worried, okay?
So a couple of guidelines. One, Justice Sotomayor should not be asked questions about cases, nor any cases that may come before the Supreme Court. And two, please ask questions. And we're going to give mics so that both the questions and the answers can be heard by all. And
All right.
Please sit.
Anybody who has to leave, go.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not going to think badly of you. Bravo? Okay.
We have a question
Who's
in the
going to
back.
be brave?
We have a gentleman back there.
You point, Roger.
Yeah, I'll point.
Okay.
All the way in back.
Good evening, Justice Sotomayor, and what a great event. And
Hold on, I'm not hearing the question. Repeat it.
oh, sorry. No. Good evening, and I was a young associate in your courtroom in the Southern District of New York when you were assigned the Major League Baseball case.
Oh my gosh, that was so long ago.
And I happened to notice last year there was an article, How Sonia Sotomayor Saved Major League Baseball. And I wanted to get your reaction, knowing how much you love the Yankees and a fellow Bronx native, what that meant to you.
I'm going to tell a story. Everybody knows I love stories, right? One of my favorite stories, after deciding that case, Judge Connie Baker Motley, for those of you who may not know her, she was a premier attorney during the civil rights movement. She worked with, side by side, Thurgood Marshall. She argued, I think it was 11 cases before the Supreme Court, won then 10, right, outright. And the 11th case she won 20 years later when the Supreme Court overruled that earlier case she lost. All right? She was an icon. She was Bronx Borough president. She was also the first African-American district court judge in New York State. Connie was a legend, and she called me a friend just deeply touched my heart. But after the baseball strike case, she came to my office and we had lunch one day, and she looked at me and she said, the only thing I'm really sad about, it doesn't matter what great things you do after this, your obituary will say the judge who saved baseball.
Right here.
I don't know if that's true anymore, but as of last year, they were still saying it. So maybe Connie was right. I'll never be able to outlive that case. But I never got more invitations from judges to come have dinner in their homes. And I asked one of them, I've been here for 3 years. Where's the dinner invitation coming from? Don't we see enough of each other in court? And she said, no, but my son wants to meet you now. So, you just, as a judge, never know what's going to come before you. Mm-hmm. You know less whether the public's going to like what you do. Because remember, there are a lot of court decisions that the public hates. That they actually liked me for that one was a real gift from God. And I'm eternally, eternally grateful for it. The only sad part of that, the whole press coverage of that time, was when I walked into that courtroom, I said to them, I love baseball, but I've never really paid attention to its business aspect. Well, the headline the next day read, Judge assigned case who knows nothing about baseball. So my younger brother calls me up and says, who said that to them? I taught you everything you know about baseball. And I looked at the phone and I said, Junior, get a grip on yourself. I taught you about baseball. Thank you for remembering that case.
Next question.
Hi, Justice. I just wanted to congratulate you on this tremendous award tonight. It's a true honor being in this building with you on this special occasion. This is a very tough, something tough for me with the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. I just want to understand how I can process what happened during that and continue to respect the integrity of the Supreme Court for someone who will be part of it for a very long time. I mean, if you can't speak to it, I understand.
No. I want to give you an answer, but I can't speak completely directly. All right? So, but let me give you my answer, okay? All people are flawed, myself included. They didn't talk about any of them. Maybe a little bit. But we're all flawed human beings. And in the end, whether any accusations about our flaws are true or not, most of us don't like them when people see them. Even less, we find it hard to believe that we could be that way after we've become whatever we've become. It's hard. And in the end, we have to rely on being judged not by what we've done, but what we're going to do. He's my colleague now, and I live each day, sometimes not liking the vote, sometimes liking it, but still waiting to see what he turns out to be as a justice, because that's what I will have to judge him on. And that's what you'll have to judge all of us on. What do we do in this situation, in this wonderful situation we're placed in? What can we bring to our work that can make people proud? And that doesn't necessarily mean you'll agree with him. But there will be rulings you will like, and there's rulings you won't like, and in the end, you'll judge him and the court by that. And that's not to say that I'm asking you to forgive anything, because in the end, we can't. It's not fair to us as people or to you as a person. But don't give up faith on that. Exactly. Watch us in the work we do and with what degree of honor and goodwill we do it with. And that I don't doubt in him. He's working very, very hard.
We have a question all the way in back, then here, and there.
Hello.
Hi.
Justice Sotomayor, it's a great honor. So a little bit about me. I am Cuban American, proud son of immigrants. I'm a first-generation college student, first-generation lawyer. I'm a 1L, so we'll see how it goes. And
I'm so glad you're here. I didn't go anywhere my first year.
he brought me. No, I'm kidding. So for me, everybody in this room understands how hard law school is. And when I go into school and I see, I go to Seton Hall, and as much as I love Seton Hall, it's 4% Latino. And sometimes it's really hard, the struggles of law school, coupled with just a lot of my peers don't know, my story and my struggles, and I really identify with your story because it's my story. So what would you say to someone like me when it's really hard and we really want to give up and, yeah.
One word. 3 words. Don't ever, 4 words, don't ever give up. Whenever you're thinking it, whenever you're thinking of it, remember me here standing here and saying, don't you ever. Como tu mamá, all right? No, putting the jesting aside, okay? It is hard. Living in a world where you feel different because you are, you're not making that feeling up. Watching people whose life experiences are so different than your own and who you don't actually believe they can understand it, and they may really not be able to. Understanding that the way that lawyers think and what they do is so alien to the background you come from and to the way people interact with each other and solve their problems. You often think, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Can I do anything good with this? Well, the answer is there's a reason you're there. And the reason is your family, because they look to you to take them a step further in this world. And because every little step you take, you're walking with a lot of other people. You're walking with me. You're walking with your friend who dragged you here today. You're walking with all of the people here who have done the same thing as you're doing today. And the most important thing is, don't keep it inside here. When you have a problem, go talk to people about it. Go talk to the upperclassmen who have lived through it. Go talk to people in the profession that you've met and ask them. And when you can't do something and you fall down and you get up and you fall down again and you get up again and you try again and you're not getting it, that's when you get up yet again, and you try again. Because that's the measure of who you are inside of yourself. The measure of a person is not how many times they're knocked down, but how many times they get up. And so someday, we will work on something together. Great. I'm waiting, okay? I got to go to the opposite side, so
Yes.
you got to pick somebody over there after
We're
this,
going to have
okay?
two here close and then one
Hello.
back there. You're okay.
Huge honor to meet you.
Thank
I'm
you.
a fellow Puerto Rican. I moved to the United States to go to law school. Through the turmoil, completely understand you. Don't give up, because yeah, and you're one of the reasons that I kept going every single year, because I had someone to look up to, like Melissa said. So thank you for your words. They literally made me cry. So thank you. It's a great honor. A question. I'm, as in that path, trying to help other people too now as an attorney. And I'm trying to read and gain the law knowledge and all of that. Do you have one recommendation or two of maybe a book that really changed your life or helped you, and that would help?
A book. There's a lot of books by people out there. But I don't know that I found one law book that helped me. Well, no. I'm going to tell you a book that didn't help me earlier in my career, but that I've read in more recent times and renewed my faith in the legal profession. Brian Stevens's Just Mercy. Right? And let me tell you why. Here is a man who, from the first day of his career at Harvard Law School, of all places, didn't know why he was there. And then he got a summer job in the South, and he found his life passion in the law. And that's his life passion is to try to help people on death row, essentially. And he has. And he's made a world of difference in his work. He's sort of revolutionized the defense bar and revitalized the importance of that kind of civic work. His passion for the law, his passion for a sense of justice, it's sort of whenever I get a little bit down about what I'm doing and am I doing any good or what, and I think about him, because he probably loses more than he wins. And yet he keeps going. And that, to me, has been very inspiring. Read about people like him who found their passion. And you're going to find it in such unlikely places, because it doesn't have to be just representing death penalty people. It's people doing corporate work. It's people doing all kinds of legal work who sort of find some good things to do and who devote their life and their profession to doing those good things. Find your passion and devote yourself to that. How's that?
That's perfect.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
We have another Boricua and then the young woman in back.
Good evening, all. Justice Sotomayor, I don't have a specific question for you today. But I
keep
feel,
it short.
Huh?
I know you. Keep it short.
No, I don't have a question. I'm going to take a Boricua moment.
No, you
That's all I want to share with the justice and with everyone else, because the word Boricua has been said a lot this evening, and I'm assuming there's people in the room who don't know what that is. That's fellow Puerto Ricans, people from Borinquen, from the island of Borinquen. And I just wanted to share with the justice how personally extraordinarily proud and honored I am to be here this evening to share this moment, not only with Justice Sotomayor, but for a moment I had a snapshot which is extraordinary for me. It's Justice Sotomayor, fellow Boricua from the Bronx, like I am. It's you, Roger Maldonado, and the Honorable Jenny Rivera from the Court of Appeals. For me, as a Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico, raised in the South Bronx, first generation high school, first generation college, and first generation law, to see three extraordinary Puerto Ricans at 60 years old and 30 years of practicing law, I am overwhelmed tonight.
How do you think I feel? I'm older than you are. All right, we're going to...
It's a Boricua moment, and thank you.
Muchas gracias. The young woman in back.
In back of you. Oh.
We have time. So who else?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Justice Sotomayor, my question for you relates to something that I'm sure doesn't happen to you often now, but as you were coming up as a lawyer, how did you deal with and what advice do you have for low expectations? And so what I mean is when you walk into a room and people see you and they think you're the court reporter, or they can push you around simply because you're not the stereotypical expectation of what a lawyer used to look like.
You know, my first year as a district court judge, lawyers would walk into the room and I would see in their eyes that they were just dismissing me. In fact, it was so self-evident that my law clerks would sometimes come to me outraged afterwards. And they would look at me and say, how can you tolerate that? How can you deal with that sort of degradation? Because that's what it feels like, you know? And I will go, just wait. And in one of those cases, there came a second conference. And in the second conference, the lawyer was looking everywhere but at me. And at one point, I looked at him and I said, Mr. So-and-so, I think you shouldn't stare at the wall, you should stare at me. Because I have a question you have to answer. Because if you can't, you might lose. So pay attention. And then I asked him a question, and I saw the surprise on his face because he realized it was a smart question. He never came back and stared at anybody else. Now, that won't happen all the time, but you have to have enough confidence in yourself to realize that you're in the room for a reason, that you bring with you skills that you have and are developing, and that whether they take you seriously or not, you're taking yourself seriously. And so you'll have to work hard, and you will have to do the things that impress people by working hard. But you have to live realizing that you don't need to impress them. You have to impress yourself. And if you can do that and have confidence that with time and experience and practice, you will get into a room and command the room. But you're not born with that. It comes. Give yourself time. Just don't doubt yourself capable. It will come. Good luck.
Question over here.
Good evening, Justice Sotomayor. My name is Eviego Badia. I'm a sixth-year associate at Littler Mendelssohn. First, I just want to thank you. Like everyone said above, representation matters. So I am honored and humbled to be in this room with you, to see you. Thank you for being who you are and what you do. I am an employment litigator. I go to court, and I want to be the best at who I am and what I do. In your many years of experience and all the attorneys that have appeared before you, when you see an attorney, what do you look for in them? What qualities and skills do they have that you say, they're a good lawyer. I'm gonna decide in their favor.
That's a lot of questions. That's a lot of questions. That's just 2 questions. Preparation. And the man who's sitting there, John Sifford, who's a lawyer here in town, he taught me this. We co-taught a class together. And his mantra to the students was always, before you do anything in a courtroom, before a question comes out of your mouth, you ask yourself these 3 questions. What am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? Secondly, can what I propose to do get me there? And third, equally important, is there a better way to do it? And the best prepared lawyers always have the answers to those questions. The best prepared lawyers I know that every appearance in court has a purpose. You're not there just to talk to the judge. You're there to convince the judge of doing something or accomplishing something in the courtroom. So you have to know what that is, and you have to have your goal in mind. And when you talk to the judge, everything you say has to lead you there. Every word you say, every explanation you give, everything you're doing has to communicate that you're accomplishing your purpose. But you can't do that without having thought of the third step. Is this the best way I could do it? Because a lot of people get stuck in, I will do it this way, and this is the right way, and this is the way that works, without stepping back and saying, wait a minute, what am I going to lose if I do it this way? What are the possible negative consequences of going this way rather than that way? That's why that third step is so important. And so for me, you can tell those lawyers. They walk in, and that's where they get confidence to that young woman, because they are that prepared, because they understand what they're trying to do, and they've figured out a way to get there. And if you're not sure, that's when you need to go to the senior partners. That's when you need to talk it out with other people. That's what mooting is all about, is figuring out how to accomplish what you're doing in the best way possible. Not my answer, his, but I've taken it as my own.
Thank you.
Other questions? There's two there and one over there. So we're going to go two here and then one over there. We'll get to you.
They're seesawing me.
Hi, Justice Sotomayor. Hello. So I'm also a 1L, and it's a little overwhelming, just a little bit. So along the same lines of what advice would you give just to keep your head above water? I also listened to that advice, and that was really helpful. But it is difficult when it seems like there are people in the room who have been preparing for this role their whole life, whereas a lot of us don't have that kind of background. I don't know any lawyers in my family, and I'm the only person who's getting, who's in law school. So it is really overwhelming. So what would you say to people like myself? Also, do you and Justice Kagan and Justice Ginsburg hang out? That's a follow-up.
All right. The last question is yes, occasionally we do.
Oh my gosh.
I've even had them to my home for dinner.
That's so cool.
Since the other two don't cook, they're impressed I do. But putting that aside, I'm going to ask you, you don't have to answer it, okay? But I'm going to ask you a personal question. How many non-poor Latino or people of color friends do you have in law school? If there's not a whole lot of them, and some of them are not from backgrounds dissimilar to yours, that's your first mistake, all right? Because we don't learn things in a vacuum. And we don't learn from people who are suffering from the same things we do. We can learn a lot in life, but not maybe some of the things we need to know about a profession that does have its protocols and its expectations. You have to seek out mentors that are different than you are, that can teach you things you don't know, that can help you figure out the game, because life is a part of a strategic game of what you have to do when. Why is it that there's all those kids asking questions of the professor? I used to think, I'm not going to be one of them. For the longest time I thought, that's, pardon the word, essing up, all right? And I would think, I'm not going to do that. I'm too cool for that, okay? But they were doing it for a purpose, because you need professors to recommend you to be law clerks someday, to help you find better jobs. And they're not going to know you unless you take advantage of those office hours. And you're not going to necessarily know how to write a memo Your legal writing instructor is going to give you this little outline and expect you to follow the outline, but without really explaining the essence of what that outline means and how you get to it and what it is that you're trying to accomplish with the outline. Those are conversations you have to seek out. And I guess my advice is, don't assume that you're stupid because you're asking the basic questions. There is a huge life difference between being ignorant and being stupid. The stupid person doesn't ask. The ignorant person doesn't know. And if you're ignorant of something, you have to look for help. And so it is critically important for all of us in new environments to seek help. I do. I talk openly about the fact that my first year on the Supreme Court of the United States, I would regularly call John Paul Stevens, the most senior member of the court, and ask him the stupidest questions. That's the way they felt like to me. But he never made me feel that way. He always answered them patiently and guided me. And half of the person I am today is attributable to the advice he gave me. My ability to stand alone came from John Paul Stevens, who I would call with questions and say, is this a little crazy on my part? Or one day when I called him and said, John, I despair that I'll never be able to produce something like a draft opinion he had given me. And I said, I don't think I could do this ever. And he said, Sonia, no one's born a justice. You grow into that. You will do this differently, but it'll be yours someday. And that got me through a very rough patch. You have to do the same. Don't look at what you don't know. Look at what you can find out. Okay. Good luck.
So there's one more right there, and then we have a woman back.
We're going to have to wrap up because I see people leaving. So, la última.
This will have to be it. Sorry.
Okay. I'm a second-year student, and the biggest challenge for me is not the courses that I take or the professors. That's been more or less okay. My hardest challenge is explaining it to my family. And I come from a family of non-lawyers. They never wanted me to go into law. They don't understand what I do. They don't understand that I'm in school till 11 p.m. I'm studying. They don't understand that I miss events, family events, graduation, birthdays, if I forget to call. How did you reconcile with that?
I'm still dealing with that.
It's a common problem.
No. You're not the only one. You're really not. My mother didn't want me to be a lawyer either, okay? She wanted me to be a journalist. She thought they did more exciting things. And my favorite call was my mother got called for jury duty. And during her lunch break, I pick up the phone. I'm a DA in Manhattan. And she says to me, they're asking me what you do. What do I tell them? They never will really fully understand. And it's okay if they don't. Mom began to see some of it when I brought her to court with me. And maybe at some point, if you do a moot court or you do a barristers union, bring them. I have found throughout my life that the best thing to do with my family is just to show them. And so my whole family, when I got sworn into the Supreme Court, came to the White House. And they were thrilled, obviously. It was President Obama, so you can imagine. And during a break, I ran into the restroom, and there's my Titi Gloria in her wheelchair with her big black bag, stuffing it with White House napkins and White House cups. I ran, I said, Titi, ¿qué tú haces? And she shrugged her shoulders. So I went out of the bathroom, I passed my mother, Mami, vete y controla a Titi Gloria. And go control Aunt Gloria. But let me say something to you that a lesson I learned. The president's last year in office, President Obama's, went to the White House Christmas party. And at the parties I went to, he gave a little speech at the end, welcoming everyone, telling them about his year and what was coming up. And it was his last speech. And he was very emotional. And at the end of it, I think to break some of the emotion, he said to everybody, please leave the silver behind. They counted. But you can take all the cups and napkins you want. We build that into the budget. That taught me a very important lesson. It wasn't my crazy Titi Gloria alone. And as different as I felt my family was in that moment, they weren't. And yes, there may be some families that come from a background where they understand the work of lawyers and they understand what the demands are on you. They may never, not in the way that you do. But they will be proud of you. So give them a chance to learn about them. And yes, apologize for the missed family dinners, but make sure you make some. Because it is important in life to keep, or try to keep, a balance. And so I have figured something very important out. There are 3 things you can't miss: weddings, funerals, and hospital visits. Because those define people's lives. Who people are marrying becomes the most important moment of their life, and you want to be a part of it. When someone dies who's important to you, tiene que estar presente. And when someone's very sick, you have to be there. And so, as long as you can keep some of those priorities in your mind, you can balance it. But don't ever regret what you're doing, because they will understand it. Give them time. Okay? Good luck.
Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing this wonderful evening. Have a good night.